you want to follow along, go ahead and open up your Roblox Studio, or you could just watch and then give it a go once you have some time later on, and you can log into your computer and play around with the studio. I'm gonna go ahead and hit new, and for my purposes, I'm just gonna make a. I'm just gonna click on this tile that says obby.
Roblox and obbies are like super challenging games.
hmm And the obby is sort of just like a world. You can make your own world. It doesn't have to be from one of these templates. As a matter of fact, let me do that. Let's make one that's not from a template. New, because I just want one that just has the sky in it with nothing else. Gave me a base plate. I can delete the base plate though. All right,
While you're
just a,
doing that search, oh, I'm sorry. While you're doing that search, I just wanted to share with everyone. I know that when we said that we'll be doing Roblox, and I know that it only runs on particular type of programming, PC or Mac, I believe. Excuse me. Um, we're not saying that to discourage you guys. We still want you to, you know, check out the class to, learn the system, basically learn the program, um, so that when you do have access to it, you'll be able to know what to do. That's a little something I just wanted to share. I know it may have discouraged some of my students last class because they didn't have a Windows or PC. I
uh-huh.
mean, a Mac or PC to be able to access Roblox or Roblox Studios. So I just wanted to share that.
All right. So first thing, I guess first thing we'll do is let's look some more at the layout of this Roblox Studio window. Remember, we talked about the menus across the top, and in each menu, it's going to have different groupings of tools that we can use. You can call these groupings here, this long bar across the bottom underneath the menus, referred to as a ribbon. Also, another important area that we're going to be using is this area here called the Explorer. The Explorer is going to show you all of the different items and scripts and everything that makes up this Roblox world. So pay. So this is someplace you're going to need to get familiar with because a lot of the settings that we are going to be playing around with show up in this Explorer area. Um, the top part is showing us different objects, and then when we click on one down here at the bottom under properties, it shows us the settings for that particular object. There's also a search bar here in the Explorer because you know there's a lot of stuff in the Explorer, so it can be hard to find things sometimes. So the search bar makes it a lot easier. This filter makes it a lot easier for us to find what we're looking for. So, for example, right now I don't want this big tile. They call it the base plate. I don't want the base plate there right now. I just want it to be open sky. So I'm gonna start typing in base plate, and you see it popped up right there. Now I click on base plate, and when I click on it here in the Explorer, it gets selected in the preview area. And I can, if I right click on it, I can do different things to it. I can rename it. I can zoom in on it. I can duplicate it, but I want to delete it. So I'm going to get delete, and then boom, there, my base plate is gone. The reason I want to do that is because the activity I'm going to show you guys is for the activity, I need an open world. I need just sky. We're going to make what they call a platformer. We talked about different types of video games the other day, and one of the kind of original types of games from a long time ago is a style of game called a platformer. A platformer is basically a game where you have to go through some type of obstacle course. Think of games like Super Mario Brothers or what's another good platformer, Tom?
Sonic, the
Sonic the
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog. Anytime where the main challenge in the game is jumping across platforms or climbing things or going through tunnels or things of that nature, going through some type of obstacle course, those are considered platformers. So one easy way to get used to using Roblox is to build little games, simple games like platformers. Um, so we're gonna make a really basic one. I'm gonna walk you through it. Give me 1 second. The very first thing we're going to do in building this platformer again is delete that base plate because we need, in order for a platformer to be challenging, you have to be able to fall. So we got rid of the ground. So now if you fall, it's game over. All right. And you also learn how to find things using the Explorer bar. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create something called a spawn point. Um, all of my folks who play games, you're familiar with a spawn point. Spawn points are where your character pops into the game, or sometimes spawn points can be checkpoints. So as you're moving through a game, if you get far enough, they don't want to make it so you have to start all over again if your character dies. They want you to be able to pick up where you left off. So spawn points can also be used for that purpose too, as a checkpoint. So we need to create our spawn point here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our tabs. We're going to go to the model tab, and then we're going to go look across the ribbon, and we're going to find a group on that ribbon called gameplay. A lot of options under gameplay. You see, you got a bunch of options for special effects. Also have an option for a spawn point. So I'm going to click on that, and you see I get this tile right here in the middle of the sky. I'm going to zoom in on it. Just so you remember, your mouse is your main navigation tool. You can use the keyboard to move around in this world as well. So if I want to get closer to something, I can use the W, the letter W on my keyboard. If I want to zoom back from it, I use the letter S. If I want to go to the left, I use the letter A. If I want to go to the right, I use the letter D. If I want to go up into the sky, I hold down the letter E. And if I want to go down toward the ground, I hold down the letter Q. But I can also do some of these activities with my mouse. If you have a mouse like mine that has, and I can't see it really, has a scroll wheel right here in the middle, that scroll wheel lets me zoom in or zoom out. If I want to turn the camera in different directions, what I should do with my mouse is hold down the right mouse button and then start moving the mouse around, and it lets me look. Okay. So what I like to do when I'm working in an environment is I use a combination of the keyboard keys and my mouse just to make it easier for me to move around. So like I might use I'm using my mouse to move in, but then I'm going to use the letter E to go up, so I can get a closer look at this block. Using the letter D now to go side by side, using my mouse to zoom in and tilt the camera up. And then now I got a really good look at it. All right, so now that I've got a good look at this spawn point, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger because it is nothing else in this world. I want my character to be able to drop in and have someplace stable to start their game. So I'm gonna make this a bit bigger. So I'm gonna click on that spawn point to select it, and then I'm gonna go to the model tab under the tools menu, or or you can go to the home tab. The tools menu is also there too, and I'm gonna click the scale tool. The scale tool is going to let me resize things. Once I click scale, I get these blue, red, and green dots all around the object. The blue dot is going to let me pull it out this way. The red dot will let me make it bigger that way. And then the green dot will make it thicker, see? But I think that's a good size for a start point. That way, if I drop into the world, I have a nice big platform to start on. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some other objects. Because remember, this is supposed to be an obstacle course. So the way we add objects is by inserting parts. So I'm going to insert first I'm going to do a block. So I'm going to click this block part. See, it added a block there. It's pretty small, but I can still grab it and I can move it. I'll get a better look at that. I'll put my select tool on. If I want to just grab something to move it, then I need to have I can use the select tool, or I can use the actual move tool. When I use the move tool, I get these arrows around the object, and similar to the resize, if I use the blue one, it lets me move it left and right. The green lets me move up and down, and the red lets me move toward me or away from me. So I'm gonna get it about right here, maybe move it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna scale this one too. I want to give myself some place to jump. When you're making your platformer, you want the first few obstacles to be kind of easy, because you don't want people to get frustrated with your game right at the beginning. So maybe I give them a couple of easy platforms to deal with first, and then I get them to a checkpoint, and then maybe I make it a little bit more difficult. Let's move that here. There we go. Move it down a little bit. All right. So that's a decent sized block. But notice I had to do a little bit of work to get that block made. So what I can do in order to make things a little bit easier, now that I have one example of that block made, is I can actually duplicate this block. I can copy it. So I clicked on the block. Notice how over here in the Explorer window, it says part, and it's highlighted blue. That's just to let me know which one of the items I currently have selected. I can change the name of that item so it's something a little bit more descriptive, so I don't, because there's going to be a lot of parts if I start adding more blocks. So maybe I'll call this block 1. I can change the name. I just double clicked on it, and now I'll change the name to block 1. Now I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to say duplicate. See, now I have 2 copies of block 1. I'll change this next one to block 2. Block 2. All right, and let's see where it threw block 2.
It should be like,
Yeah, they're stacked on top. They're stacked on top of each other. So now I had to move block 2 a little bit. Make sure you're moving the camera around, because they look like they're close together, but as you see, as I zoomed in, that was a pretty challenging jump. I'm gonna scale it a little bit, make it jump a little bit easier. All right, and then after you do a couple of obstacles, I'm not going to do too many. Again, what you want to do is you want to give your character some place to rest, so you can create a checkpoint. So for this, I'm going to create. I'm not going to do a block. I'm going to use a different part type. Notice how if I click this little triangle underneath part, I have some options, some additional options for spheres, wedges, cylinders. So actually, I don't want a sphere. I want a cylinder, actually. So I'm going to click on that, delete that, click the bottom half of this button, and I'm going to say cylinder. Notice how these are all 3D shapes. These 3D shapes, though, can be used if you flatten them out. You can use them as regular 2D shapes. We rotate this. I'm going to use the rotate. Haven't used that one yet, but it's the same premise. You get the colored dots around it. And if I grab the green dot, I can spin it this way. I can spin it around. If I grab the red dot, you can see the way I spin it is this way. And if I grab the blue dot, or the green dot rather, I can spin it that way. So I'm going to spin it so it's like that. Now I'm going to scale this. Oh, I'll take you. Scale. Scale. And I'm going to flatten you. So I turned it from a 3D shape into a 2D shape by flattening it. And I want to actually scale it up a little bit more. All right. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So I have now a couple of obstacles. This circle is going to be my checkpoint, but right now it's not a checkpoint. In order to make this a true checkpoint, I have to create a second spawn point. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually, I shouldn't use that circle. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back to my model tab, hit spawn. All right. I'm going to resize this spawn point. Because even though this is a special spawn point, it's still a shape. Right now, it's still a flattened block. But I can change the way that it's shaped. So let's say I want to make it a cylinder. That's my second block. Spawn location. Click on spawn location. I'm going to go to the spawn location's properties. And right here where it says part and it says shape under the properties of the spawn location, I can change that. I can make it say ball, block, or cylinder. I'm going to make it say cylinder. And now it's changed its shape. So I can let me click on it again and scale it. So now not only is it a cylinder, it's also my second spawn point. To make it an actual checkpoint though, I got to do one more setting change. I'm going to click on my first spawn point. Maybe I change the name of that to spawn location 1. So let's rename it spawn location 1. And let's make this one spawn location 2. So name that 2. 2. There we go. Go back to spawn location 1. And I'm going to go to its properties. So down here at the bottom, properties. I'm going to go all the way to a property called teams. Right now, there's a check mark beside option called neutral. I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm going to check this one that says allow team change. Then I'm going to go to my other spawn location and do the same thing. Uncheck neutral and check the allow team change. Now what that will do is that now when I first come into the game, it'll drop me on the first spawn point. But if I make it to this next area and then I fall, instead of coming back all the way to the beginning of the game, it'll bring me back to this point. And I can test that. I can go to my test menu and I can say play. So what should happen is my character gets dropped into the game. So I'm at my first point. Now I gotta find that first obstacle. Oh, where are my other blocks? Oh. One thing I forgot to do. The reason that those other blocks weren't there is because they weren't anchored in space. So unless you have a base plate, if your objects are floating in the air and then you start your game, they'll just fall out of the air unless you anchor them. So what I need to do is I'll click on this first object, and then up here on the home tab under the edit menu, I'm going to click this option that says anchor. There. So now this is anchored, and then I'm going to do the same thing here, anchored. The spawn locations are anchored by default, so that's why I can still see them. But these other added objects, they needed to be anchored manually. So now I'm going to try to play again, and this is why you test as you're building. You want to. It'd have been really bad if I did a whole bunch of work and then went to play it, and then none of my blocks were in the air anymore. So test periodically as you're working. Now you make a couple changes, test it. I see it's there in my blocks now. So get a good running start. Let's see if this jump is too hard. Oh, a little bit too much for that guy. All right, so now I tested it, so now I know that block's a little bit too far. Let's move it in closer. Probably need to move this one in a little bit closer too. Down a bit. And then move this guy in. All right, let's run it again. See if we can make this jump. Get a running start. Yeah. Oh, we still missed it. That might have just been me. All right. So you see how I respawned in that point? Because I never made it to the other one. Let's get a good look at how. Oh, they're not that far apart. There we go. And then my next jump is way down there. Let's see if he makes it. Oh, just did. Oh, almost made it. I know we're a little bit over time. We're gonna get him fixed, and then we'll wrap up. Let's get this closer. Down with that. Bring it back in. There we go. Let's try this one more time. See if I can make it to the second spawn point. First block passed. Let's look off that corner. Let's look around with the camera a little bit. Okay. Hopefully I can make that jump. Here goes nothing. Oh, you made it. And then walk right onto the second spawn point. But oh, what happens? This is a long spawn point. I'm going to run off the edge. So now is it going to take me back to the beginning of the game or not? So I'm testing my second respawn point. If it brings me, it brought me back to the beginning. All right, so that means that my setting isn't right for the second spawn point because it should have brought me back to the second area. So let's go to spawn location 2. Team. Let's change this team color to white. And then let's go to first spawn location. And change that team color to white too. And let's play it one time. What? What's that all about?
Wrong point. And
All right, so I have to look at why it's not spawning, respawning. I'm forgetting the setting. All right, but you guys kind of get the idea of how to make the platformer, how to move around those major blocks. We'll look again at um, creating the multiple spawn points. It could be because of the way I made the cylinder. You might have to touch that other surface, where the symbol is, in order for the spawn point to work correctly. So I turned it sideways so it's not letting me touch that spiral symbol. Um, but you get the idea. Once you have those two spawn places and spawn points in place, you should be able to touch the other one, and that way, if I fall off the cliff here, instead of bringing me back to the beginning of the game, it'll bring me back here. So we'll look at that some more next week, and we'll look at some other kind of basic building techniques, and then we'll look at a couple of advanced techniques too. I know we're over time, so we'll cut it here for the day. But as you're working on your stories, just kind of keep in mind, like Jada mentioned, how you could possibly incorporate your story into one of these game worlds. Doesn't have Not all games are action adventure games. Some games can be like dress up games or puzzle games or platformers or race car games. So there's a lot of different games that you could make. So for everybody's story, you should be able to find a game genre that fits what you're doing. All right. Just take some time over the next week. Play around with the Roblox Studio so you can get familiar with using some of the tools that I mentioned here, specifically the insert tools where we're playing around with the different parts, and then the tools for changing the way that those parts work. Because even though you have really complex things in your Roblox, you could have really complex things in your Roblox world, things that may be objects in the toolbox. Everything can be built from parts and by putting different parts in cubes and spheres and cylinders, and then changing their shape and rotation. All right, so that'll give you a really good understanding of how to build your own things too, which can be helpful. All right. Any questions before we call it a day? Stop the screen share. All right. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
all right, have a good one.
All right.